Alright guys, I'm going to show you how to clean a little weed whacker carburetor, or a chainsaw, or pretty much goes for anything with these types of carburetors. First off, what you want to do is that most of them have two different little screws somewhere in here, or sometimes they actually just have one, and it's for the low screw, or it could be the high screw, but anyway, they're marked H and L for low and high. Now you'll have to adjust them later when you take them out, but if yours looks like this, see, I cut a groove into it with a hacksaw. I put this in a vise and I cut a groove into it so I can use a flathead screwdriver. In order to get these out, I had to use a pair of needle nose and screw them on out. But after you do that, putting them in a vise and using a hacksaw blade to cut a hole in them works pretty good. Or cut a slot in them anyway. So once you have it out and you got those screws out, sometimes they'll have plastic caps over them and they just pop off. And then they'll look like this sometimes. Either that or they'll just have, these in there. So we'll go ahead and take the bulb off first. Some of these screws will be in really tight, so make sure you push real good and turn. And make sure you have a good Phillips head screwdriver to take them out with, and a nice clean cloth. And that's what that'll look like. Now these should peel off. That's where your fingernails come into play. You want to very easily peel that off. Yeah, that or you'll be buying a rebuild kit. And also remember when you take these off that you remember the orientation this goes in. The gasket part actually suits up against this part. So I'm just going to set it down just like that. And look at all that crud in there. The filter actually busted off the line, and a bunch of gunk got in there. So I'm going to have to put new gas line in it too, because it just crumbled inside the tank. The filter came off first, like I said, and then it just sucked up a bunch of gunk into the carburetor. And be careful when you take this off too, you don't ruin the gasket. There we go, perfect. I mean, we screwed up the gasket a little bit there, but it'll seal properly. Now for this inside here, we're pretty much done actually. Take this screw out, and you can see how that system works in there. Just do not bend this piece here. Just leave it the same. And there's a spring behind it, so you'll have to watch out for that. And they can be a mother bear to try and get back in. And then once you get that and them pieces off, you'll have a little needle in there. It'll come out just like that. Now I think we're ready to clean. This gasket piece can stay on. Alright, we're ready to clean. I barely have any carburetor cleaner left, so I'm just going to give it a quick spray down. Do it over here. And you want to make sure you get into all the holes. And make sure you don't get the carburetor cleaner all over the gaskets and stuff like that, because it'll eat them up. These paper gaskets aren't that much of a worry though, but what you want to do is just spray inside there and all the little holes in the ports and all these little itty bitty guys and whatnot. But since I don't have much left of my carburetor cleaner, I'm just going to spray as much as I can in here. Alright. Now I'll put you guys over here maybe. And just blow through all the ports. Now you want to watch it, there is a screen in here, and make sure that don't fly out. Oop, almost lost that screen. Take it out. Maybe. There we go. And sometimes there's rubber O-rings inside where these go, but this one didn't have them, so. don't forget there's some really small ones down into this piece here. I don't think we got her all. Now it's time to put her back together. Yeah. I didn't do this piece. This piece really doesn't need to be done. It doesn't. It only has a couple of holes in here with this. Yeah. You want to inspect the diaphragm for any holes or anything as well. And you want to, when you're going to put that top piece back on, you want to hold your throttle open and then put it together and hold it. I want to make sure these are tight, but make sure they're not too tight to where they start stripping out, which is kind of hard to do on these little things. So we got to put our needle back in. Make sure you have nice clean hands when you go and do this. It's going to be kind of hard to show you because this stuff's just way too small. And guess what I forgot to do on this side? Put that screen in. And then this little spring just sits in that little hole there. Just like that. And then, man, this camera. This would have to go in here. And there's like a little indention in this guy there. That fits in that spring. So it's going to be very difficult. Alright, and then you want to make sure you double check your spring inside there, make sure it's not lopsided and that it's all perfect. And that is going to pull up on that little valve in there, a little needle. Now these usually only go on like one way. Make sure I got everything. Yeah. They usually have like a little hole or an indentation where that sits into or whatever. It doesn't really actually matter which way they go on, just sometimes they got little guide pins or something. Let's take his back apart and put the screen back in. Make sure it's decently clean, and then just kind of hook it down in there very gently so you don't put a hole in it. This thing just doesn't want to cooperate. There we go, good enough. It's in there. Alright, now for those idle screws, most of the time they'll be exactly the same. Sometimes there'll be very little differences, you won't be able to tell, so just make sure you put them back in the right spots as they came out. Since I put these slots in there, I can use a flathead screwdriver instead of using that special tool. But that's only if you can actually get them out in the first place with like a pair of needle nose pliers or something. And there we have it, really. That's how you clean a carburetor. Now for these little, these idle and main jet screws, what you want to do is run these all the way down till they bottom out. Not hard, but run them all the way down and then back them out maybe 1 1/4 turns or so. And then you can look up other YouTube videos on how to actually adjust these while it's running, because there's about 1 million of those. But really, you just want to let it sit in idle, and you want to adjust this to where it has the highest idle, adjust it in or out to where it idles really high for the low, and then you want to back it out a little bit, maybe an eighth or a quarter turn. That should be set right. And then for your high, you want to hold the trigger in, and if it dies, then start it back up, and then back this on out a little bit, some more, until it starts running better when you pull the trigger all the way on. And then once you have it full blast, mess with this until you get the highest possible idle, or highest possible throttle when you're going, got the trigger held down. And then you want to back it out a little bit more to give it a bit more gas to idle it down a little bit. Hope that makes sense. But what you want to do, you want to try to get the highest possible idle, and then back it out another about maybe an eighth of a turn or so. And then on your high side, you want to get the highest possible RPM when you're holding the trigger down, and then back that one out another half a turn, or about a quarter of a turn or an eighth of a turn or so. So the RPMs will go down a little bit. So, anyway, that's how you clean a little carburetor.